so funny. Like my friend said to me, rappers, they're all so tough until you hear their real name.
Yeah, well, until you see them at a puffy party.
Oh.
Then they're not tough no more. I'm surprised that the rap game is still alive because the masculinity that the rappers are supposed to portray.
You know, the next thing is, man, Craig Mack was the one that jumped Bad Boy off. And you know, and it got so bad that Craig Mack, who died from AIDS, that man, he got brainwashed so bad from Diddy and got done so wrong. The man went to South Carolina and joined a cult with his family until he died of AIDS a few years ago.
He invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at it. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. He's sitting there, just looking at it, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to f you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh.
The music industry is often described as a dream factory. Young artists enter with big ambitions, hoping to make their mark, while veterans hold the doors that decide who gets in. But every so often, stories surface that remind us that the same industry which makes stars can also destroy lives. Right now, all eyes are on Sean Diddy Combs. Once celebrated as hip-hop's ultimate mogul, he now sits behind bars, facing charges that could end his legacy for good. But it is not just prosecutors telling his story. Celebrities who once brushed shoulders with him are stepping forward with their own experiences. And among them, Academy Award-nominated actor Terrence Howard has dropped one of the most chilling testimonies yet. His revelations not only shine light on his own disturbing encounter with Diddy, but also connect to whispers that young rappers who attended Diddy's infamous parties may have left with more than regrets. Some say they left infected, and the silence around this makes it even more haunting. Terrence Howard is no stranger to the spotlight. With Hustle and Flow, Empire, and countless film roles under his belt, he built a career on grit and talent. But his recent interview on Patrick Bet-David's podcast revealed something personal, something uncomfortable, and something that adds to the growing narrative of Hollywood's dark underbelly.
So funny. Like my friend said to me, rappers, they're all so tough until you hear their real name.
Yeah, well, until you see them at a puffy party.
Oh.
Then they're not tough no more. I'm surprised that the rap game is still alive because the masculinity that the rappers are supposed to portray.
What is it with all the man-on-man action that I'm learning about? I mean, like with the puffy parties, like the last thing I ever thought that went on there was gay stuff. Not that gay stuff was wrong, it's wonderful. I just did not think that's what Puffy was doing.
Yeah, well, I didn't think it either. And even when my assistant said that stuff, I still was like joking it off. And it wasn't until later on that I heard other things from people that worked from him. You remember that back in the times of slavery, they had a thing called breaking the buck, where they would take, not to go in a bad place, but this is how I see what's happening, the parallels with what's happening correlates what's happening in the business. If they, back in the times of slavery, if they had like some 12-year-old slave that was just full of himself and confident and, wasn't listening, they would tie him to a log or a barrel, and a bunch of the overseers would him to where when he walked around with the slave.
Howard explained that Diddy repeatedly reached out to him, asking him to come by and teach him acting. At first, it sounded harmless, even flattering. But when Howard finally agreed, the meeting went sideways. According to Howard, Diddy barely engaged with the supposed purpose of their meetup. Instead, he sat in silence, staring at Howard. Howard described it as unsettling, the kind of attention that made his instincts flare up. He played some of his own music at Diddy's request. But nothing changed. The silence and the gaze remained, building an unspoken tension in the room. When Howard later told his assistant about it, the assistant's blunt conclusion was that Diddy was making a subtle move on him. That moment, though brief, left Howard convinced that what he felt was real and not just his imagination. Howard's story is disturbing enough on its own, but what makes it more significant is how it fits into the larger puzzle of Diddy's reputation. For decades, his parties were legendary. They were the stuff of myth. Celebrities, models, endless music, champagne flowing, and a guest list that seemed to stretch across the whole entertainment world.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the
Hell
consequences
yeah.
when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands-off with somebody. A number of producers come in to make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you or looking at you like you're a woman. When you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room. And that's always been my whole thing, and have lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play gay roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
I had no idea we're going to go this direction with the podcast. This is absolute. But listen, we've talked about it. We've had a lot of the guys on to talk about this stuff. Are you done with Hollywood because of this specific reason?
I'm still working. I still, I haven't made the money necessary to do all of the other stuff. So I still have to go and do the Chitlin circuit. I still have to do the job that I need to. But eventually, I've done what I set out to do, which was to redefine the universe. I've proven what I've set out to do, and that's why I have all the patents. Whether they evaluate it or not, that's up to them. But I've done the work and finished it. Now I can go on and do whatever else we need to do.
But insiders have long whispered that these parties were not what they seemed. Behind the glamour was another reality. Guests have described them as pressure-filled environments, where younger artists and celebrities were introduced to scenes that went far beyond fun. In that environment, choices were blurred and consequences were ignored. Now, the whisper suggests something far worse, that some rappers walked away from those parties infected with diseases that changed their lives forever. No names have been made public, but the industry buzz points toward young artists who suddenly disappeared from the spotlight, their promising careers cut short. The very spaces that promise opportunity may have left them scarred, forcing them into silence. And silence, as history has shown, always benefits the powerful. To understand why Terrence Howard's story is hitting so hard right now, we have to look at Diddy's current situation. He is not facing small accusations. The charges are federal. Prosecutors accuse him of trafficking, racketeering, and creating an entire network designed to exploit people.
Somewhere in the middle of the baby oil play, Mr. Combs walks over and he takes like a pack of condoms and he just throws it on the couch and kind of says, I'm ready to watch you, penetration in a very direct way, right? And that made me uncomfortable and I could not perform. We stopped the session, she left the room, came back in, and then the conversation was different at the end, right? The conversation would usually be, that was great, we'll see you next time. And the conversation this time was, well, we appreciate your privacy and being discreet, and thank you so much. And I just read between the lines, like, oh, that didn't go too well. And the next time I ended up in any scenario with them being mentioned or involved is I'm sitting with federal investigators.
We have breaking news now involving Sean Diddy Combs and his ex-girlfriend.
Repeated and even trafficking.
I was first initially contacted by federal investigators spring of 2024. And I run a nightclub event, so I assume, there's always small incidents at the club and stuff, and I was like, maybe they're following up something for the club. So I was actually standoffish. I came to them and it was like, hey, can we talk to you? And we're like in the lobby, it's a bunch of people, and I'm like, we can stay here, we'll talk right here. And they were like, are you sure? I said, yeah. And they said, well, this is pertaining to Mr. Sean Combs. I was like, follow me upstairs, fellas, right behind me. Need some water? Come on up. So they actually laughed, and we got to my apartment, and they mentioned they were investigating human trafficking. And they kind of downplayed it and said, oh, we're just doing due diligence. Just tell us how you were involved. And I basically let them know, hey, I was called this many times. I didn't see any violence. I didn't see anything. It was just a kind of routine scenario that, fizzled out. And there was no way I thought that at some point I would end up testifying. I was probably in denial of getting on the stand to as little as 2 weeks before I testified.
This is not just about one or two bad decisions. This is about a system. And that is what makes Howard's experience so important. His story reinforces the idea that this pattern was not random. It was part of something organized, a playbook Diddy may have used again and again. It also isn't Diddy's first brush with controversy. Back in 1991, a tragedy at City College of New York left 9 people dead during a celebrity basketball game he helped organize. Courts ruled that he bore responsibility for the unsafe planning that caused the deadly stampede. Even then, people noticed how quick he was to avoid accountability. That tragedy became a shadow over his career. And now, decades later, the shadow feels darker than ever, as new victims and old memories collide in the courtroom of public opinion. Howard did not just stop at retelling his story. He used it to underline a larger point. In Hollywood, many artists face pressure to bend, to compromise, to give up parts of who they are in exchange for opportunity. But Howard has always said no. He refused roles that tested his boundaries. He turned down parts that asked him to sacrifice what he called his man card. And as a result, he admits he lost jobs, lost money, and lost opportunities. But he kept his integrity. That integrity is why his story is resonating now. In a moment where silence is breaking and courage is needed more than ever.
There's a short life in
Why do you think that is with the creative side?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take drugs. You're going through so much to try and deal with life. You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far, Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head, But when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through. Like if a woman gives up her womanly right of being a mother and taking care of her family and do all those things, when you give up those things, but when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from. So maintain your man card, no matter what.
Man, I mean, one of the things you're seeing, you went to a whole different place.
Sorry.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. You need therapy. And that's the thing that hurts them the most. And so they end up on drugs, end up every way to try and get rid of any principles there are. And that's what the business does. And the women that trade their bodies to go and get the role, they get to the point where they have their Oscar, they have their money, but they don't have their dream. They don't have the soul that they started.
Howard also clashed with Diddy in another way. When Quincy Brown, Diddy's stepson, was set to appear on Empire, Diddy reportedly blocked it. The reason? Disputes over Quincy's music rights. Diddy didn't want his stepson to give up control of his work. So rather than negotiate, he banned him from appearing. That move showed how far Diddy would go to maintain control, even at the expense of people close to him. And for Howard, it was another example of manipulation disguised as business. This brings us to the part of the story that has shaken fans the most. Industry insiders claim that a list exists, a quiet list of young rappers who attended Diddy's parties and came away infected. Whether the infection refers to health issues or deeper forms of damage, the whispers all agree on one thing: their careers were never the same.
You know, the next thing is, man, Craig Mack was the one that jumped Bad Boy off. And you know, and it got so bad that Craig Mack, who died from AIDS, that man, he got brainwashed so bad from Diddy and got done so wrong. The man went to South Carolina and joined a cult with his family until he died of AIDS a few years ago. The man refused service for AIDS. And the cold part about it, man, if y'all go check the video, right? At one point, he was gonna try to delete Diddy. You know, some say that Diddy might have had something to do with hooking him up with the girl that gave him the alphabet. And Craig Mack refused any funeral arrangements from Bad Boy, you know, in the wake of his death. It's bad when somebody go and join a cult. The same thing happened to Loon, the same thing happened to Mace. Everybody's seeking religion, man, when they messing with Bad Boy and Diddy.
Some of these rappers reportedly withdrew from the spotlight almost overnight. Others struggled with unexplained disappearances from tours and collaborations. To the public, it looked like bad luck or poor choices. But insiders suggest there may have been more beneath the surface, something that could not be spoken aloud. Howard's testimony does not give us names, but his words make the rumors harder to dismiss. If even established figures felt cornered in Diddy's presence, what chance did fresh faces with no power have? For many, the parties that were meant to launch them into fame may have been the very events that derailed their futures permanently.
So people like Attorney General Pam Bondi were flaunting around the Epstein files in February of this year. You even had people like Kash Patel, who has been deeply embedded in Trump's orbit, saying that Jeffrey Epstein didn't commit and that the files are indeed real. But our sources, and yes, we're deeply connected inside the White House, have a very different story to tell than the one that's being told to the public.
I am fascinated by this because Patel and Bongino were leading the conspiracy theories about Epstein's death and whether there was a client list. I never thought they would do a flip, but it sounds like they almost have, and they're on board with the notion that it was and there's no list.
Well, very much so. The Department of Justice, with the sign-off of the FBI, released a statement and a memo, Axios first reported it, saying there was no client list and there was no.
Now, during all of this, Diddy had been convicted on 2 counts of the Mann Act, which is transporting workers across state lines for the purpose of. And we got word from insiders at the White House that Donald Trump was seriously considering pardoning Diddy. Roll the clip.
This is a big deal. This is a big deal. President Trump is seriously considering pardoning Diddy. And we know this. We have sources with direct knowledge that people from the White House have been in communication with the defense team, Diddy's defense team, and that Trump is seriously considering it, and this is going to be timed to the judge's decision on whether Diddy gets bail.
This would be the ultimate smokescreen, and we've seen for weeks some very major smokescreens, but this one would have to take the cake.
And on the surface, this link kind of starts to make sense, right? Two men, both accused in high-profile scandals, both convinced they were being unfairly targeted, and both using the media to frame themselves as victims. But then everything shifted. Diddy was denied bail. After that, Trump came out and said that he once got along with Diddy very well, but that he was leaning towards not pardoning Diddy because Diddy was, quote, very hostile to him during the time that Trump was running for office. Roll the clip.
Sean Diddy Combs.
Right.
Would you consider pardoning him?
Well, he was essentially, I guess, sort of half innocent.
Yes.
I don't know what they do. He's still in jail or something, but he was celebrating a victory, but he seems, I guess it wasn't as good as a victory. Probably, you know, I was very friendly with him. I got along with him great. And seemed like a nice guy. I didn't know him well. But when I ran for office, he was very hostile.
He said some not so nice things about you, sir.
Yeah, and it's hard, you know, like you, we're human beings.
Right.
And we don't like to have things cloud our judgment, right? But when you knew someone and you were fine, and then you run for office and he made some terrible statements. So I don't know, it's more difficult. It makes it more, I'm being honest, it makes it more difficult to do.
But more likely a no for Combs,
I would say so.
Okay.
But it seems like Trump isn't out of tactics to distract the public from the Epstein files.
Right now, Diddy is fighting for his freedom, but the bigger fight may be for his legacy. Every new revelation chips away at the empire he built. Once celebrated for turning hip-hop into a billion-dollar business, he is now facing a narrative that paints him as manipulative, reckless, and dangerous. The families of past victims, the artists who fell silent, and now figures like Terrence Howard all contribute to a picture that is impossible to ignore. The story of Diddy is no longer about music or money. It is about power and how far someone will go to keep it. The man who once stood as a symbol of ambition and entrepreneurship is now reduced to an example of unchecked influence spiraling out of control. And every day that passes in that Brooklyn jail, the whispers grow louder, suggesting that this may not just be the end of his career, but the unraveling of a legacy built on secrecy. Terrence Howard's decision to speak up changes everything. His testimony is not just a personal story. It is a puzzle piece that connects to the wider accusations now threatening to dismantle Diddy's empire. And while the industry holds its breath for the outcome of Diddy's trial, people are asking new questions.
If there's a round of kids, it's the trafficker. P. Diddy gets a round of kids. Let's say that round of kids had Justin Bieber in it. There's contracts, okay? There's contracts for codes within that person. So they can take a remote and turn that person off. Britney Spears, when they want to. Lindsay Lohan, when they want to. Amanda Bynes, when they want to, okay? So let's say there's a contract for Justin Bieber. When P. Diddy has a hold of Justin Bieber, he now owns half of those codes. If Usher had the same contract and trafficked Bieber out to P. Diddy, okay, Usher and P. Diddy now have parts of Justin Bieber's contract. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if one goes down, the other side of the code has to go down. If there's a property linked to that person, Kevin Hart, because they had something to do with the trafficking of Bieber, then their property will go down because there's a code to that property. There's a code to everything. Your social security number is like a code. Okay? But depending on the level of MK Ultra, people have auctions for the codes on that person. So they can use a remote to them, like a TV, and shut them down, turn it up, use somebody else, change it whenever they feel like it. Bookmark it. Trust me. Trust me, bookmark it. Okay? I know it's probably not gonna make sense right now, but bookmark it.
MK Ultra is used
But to get MK Ultra to take hold the way it needs to be, it has to involve satanic ritual, extreme trauma, humiliation, just evil on a level you can't imagine. I don't care what you all think about Trump. I'm not sure what I think about Trump, but he is telling you the truth on a lot of things. You guys just don't understand what he's saying. When he's saying they're eating the cats and dogs, he's preparing your hearts and your minds for the fact that satanic ritual is about to come into the light in a big way. Voodoo is about to come into the light in a big way. Cannibalism is about to come into the light.
If a list of rappers truly exists, when will those names come out? Will they remain whispers, or will brave artists step forward and confirm the rumors? And if they do, will the industry finally confront how deep the darkness at those parties really ran? The truth may be closer than we think, but for now, the silence around that alleged list leaves us with one haunting question. How many careers and lives were quietly destroyed before someone spoke up? And if Terrence Howard's bravery is the spark, will others follow with their own truths? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on any new videos. And until then, fam, keep it real.